Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and it's finally time. We're here to talk about the new hero skin, Yin Chen, and we're not just going to talk about her, we're going to talk about the lore behind her, we're going to talk about the Inquisition that she's a part of, we're just going to go into everything that I've read. If you have not seen the video, Faith and Conviction, where I basically read over the 3 parts of her lore, go check that video out and then come back so that you can get the full context of what we're going to be talking about today. And for those of you who just have no idea what's going on here, I'll try to explain. Starting last year, what For Honor has started doing is in each season they release a unique hero skin for a specific hero. They started with Lord Ramiel, which was a warden skin with his own lore. Then they did Bolthorn the Cursed, who was a raider with his own skin, with his own lore. Then they did Maiko, the yokai slayer, who was the Kensei with her own lore. And then finally in Season 4, they did Commander Ravier, who was a Black Prior with her own lore that basically kick-started the whole invasion of Arabia and blah, blah, blah. And I've talked about each and every single one of them. Now we have Inquisitor Yinchen, who is a pirate who has an inquisitorial theme. So, let's break this down piece by piece. Let's start with her overall look, because that's the thing that a lot of people like to talk about, the look of the hero. And I'll be honest, yeah, people saying that this is probably the best hero skin, I'm going to have to agree. I think this is a fantastic hero skin. It's right up there with Maiko for me. Maiko was probably the best hero skin we had in year 6, but now in year 7, I'm going to go ahead and give it to I'm going to give it to Yin Chen right off the bat. This is obviously we don't have anything else to compare it to this year, but I mean compared to what we had in year 6, I would say Yin Chen is probably the best. Now, to be fair, it's not what a real Inquisitor would look like. It's very much inspired by fantasy-style Inquisitions, or maybe the 40k version of Inquisitions, or the Pathfinder Inquisitor, stuff like that. Like, they're very much fantasy-esque here. But I don't mind that. That's fine. I mean, For Honor kind of dips itself into fantasy anyway, so this isn't a big deal. I also want to say, and Lark pointed this out to me, I think it's a really cool point, this is the first hero skin we've had that deviates from what the hero is originally. I mean, think about it. Ramiel is the Warden hero skin, but he's still a Night Warden, you know? Bolthorn is the Raider hero skin, but he's still a Raider. Maiko is a Demon Slayer hero skin, but she's still a Kensei. Like, all of them are still their own class. But here we have a pirate who is now not a pirate, but an Inquisitor. Now, granted, she used to be a pirate, but her motif and design now are more inquisitorial than they are pirate. And as General Fujikiyo pointed out in his own video, there were no pirate inquisitions. So, yeah, so that works just fine. And I think that's creative. And now to address the elephant in the room, lots of people are saying that they don't like the hero skin because it's still a woman. And all I can say to that is, I don't care. I think it's fine. I have no issue one way or another. I think that the hero skin looks awesome for what it is. So, as far as look goes, Yin Chen looks really, really awesome. So, look-wise, it's great. So, now the story synopsis. For those who didn't hear the story that I read to y'all, again, go check it out. But we'll just briefly go over it and we'll talk about it piece by piece. Yin Chen was a former pirate who served under Bo Yin, who was like the main pirate. And she fell in love with Heathmore when they arrived here. So they made it to Heathmore, fell in love with the people, loved everything about it. But now a group of fanatics who worship the relics, like the relics we saw in year 6, have begun to prop up, called the Servants of the Stake. Now, I do wonder about that name, Servants of the Stake. What do they mean by stake? There are no relics that have to do with stakes. It's a little weird. But anyway, Yin Chen is worried about the people of Heathmore and wants to protect them. So even though she's not a huge fan of Horkos, she joins the Inquisition that Horkos forms to combat the fanatics. And apparently she spent her time there very joyously. She did a good job with them. She was doing what she thought was right until an event in an Ashfell town called Waterstop. The Inquisition defeats some fanatics there, but then the Inquisition follows that up by massacring the village, including a child that Yin Chen took a liking to. So Yin Chen gets upset about all this and decides that the Inquisition has just gone too far, and she leaves the Inquisition and decides that they need to be, stopped. Someone needs to keep an eye on them, and that someone has to be her. So she becomes a fighter for the people, a vigilante, if you will, fighting not only the fanatics, but also the Inquisition. Then, at a cathedral, during a merciless bloodbath that sullies the holy ground, basically, like, she even describes it in her story, that this once hallowed holy ground was now tainted by blood. And I want to talk about that. That's an interesting point, but we'll come back to it. Yin Chen decides to destroy the relics. She says, This has gone too far. The relics are the source of this problem, so I need to destroy them. Now, that's where the story ends, but as we see later in some added lore, it turns out that at the Battle of the Secluded Keep, Yin Chen was captured alive by the Inquisition, and Astria plans to make an example out of her. So, Yin Chen is still alive, and Astria is going to do something to her to make an example out of her. Alright, so that's basically her story. Let's talk about what's good about it. What is good about her story? Well, first of all, I'll say this. The inclusion of an Inquisition is a unique idea, and provides brand new opportunities for conflict internally. Like, one of the things that we've been seeing a lot of in the last year was a lot of the conflict we saw was outside of Heathmore. You notice that? Like, with Bullthorn, they had to go to Egypt to get a new enemy. And when we had Ravier, we had to go to Arabia to get a new enemy. And the only internal lore problems that and actually even with Maiko, you could argue it's an external threat, because it's not actually a group within Heathmore that's causing trouble. It's the yokai who are a supernatural threat. And then with Ramiel, it's all about the dragons, you know? Like, so in last year, we didn't really have any internal conflict. It was all external or supernatural problems. Here, we now have an internal threat again, which goes back to, it returns to the bare basics, which I can appreciate. I also like something else. This is the first time that we've seen this in For Honor. It acknowledges the ordinary citizens. Have y'all thought about that? This is the first time For Honor actually acknowledges that there is a civilian population in Heathmore. Up until now, we never really explored that. We never explored the common citizens, the common folk, the average, everyday peasants or farmers. Mostly, it just covered the warriors. So, but now, through Yin Chen's story, we see how some civilian, ordinary people are impacted by the wars and conflict. The world of Heathmore now feels a bit more real. It feels a little bit more fleshed out. We have actual civilians involved and how they are hurt or prosperous under the regimes that take over Heathmore. And I like that. I think that's great. I'm also glad to see that the villains aren't just knights who turned evil. That was my big fear. What happened was when the developers said that each season was going to focus on atrocity or injustice, and they said that this season was going to focus on the knights, I was like, oh no, you're making the Inquisition just a bunch of knights who've turned evil again. But no, it turns out that the Inquisition is not just knights. It's that the town and villages in which the Inquisition is most prominent is in Ashfeld. So it turns out that the problem is that these Ashfeldian lands are what are being attacked and hurt and all that, and that's better. I'm okay with that. I'm glad that it's not just the knights being evil. It's all of Ashfeld that's suffering, not Ashfeld that's doing the hurting. I'm glad for that. And like I said, Inquisitor Yinchen is just a really cool design. That's another positive. I think another thing that I like about her is her decision to carve out the rot, her decision to fight against both the Inquisition and the Fanatics. She reminds me a bit of Geralt of Rivia. You know, she refuses to choose the lesser of two evils when she could choose what's right instead. I've always been a kind of a sucker for that kind of person who hates the two options presented and instead goes with the third, a dangerous but more honorable direction. Actually, funny enough, I know that they're not doing this, but it's very Christian the more I think about it. The idea is, when given the lesser of two evils, you decide not to go with either. You decide to do what's right, even if it's not popular. That's a very Christian direction, I gotta say. You know, so I'm not saying she's Christian, but I'm saying it is a more Christian direction to go, and I gotta appreciate that. But now that I've talked about all the good stuff about it, let's talk about the bad stuff. So first of all, Yin Chen's righteousness and behavior and attitude towards good and evil is odd. Not that I don't like it, but it doesn't make sense. First of all, she was a pirate under Bo Yin, right? First of all, you know pirates pillage and steal, right? What did you do on Bo Yin's ship before you became an Inquisitor? What did you do before you came to Heathmore? I mean, you came into Heathmore and you're all like, oh man, I love this city. I love how awesome it is. I love how cool this country is. But I want to do what's right for it. Well, where did that come from? I thought pirates were all about opportunist, like being an opportunist. Now, what you could argue, I'll grant this. What you could argue is that maybe Yin Chen was a vagabond and rogue and villain. But then after coming to Heathmore, her ideals changed. And she now wanted to do what's right. Kind of like my own story of Bao Xin, or David now, the Shaolin. He started out as a warrior for the Wu Lin until he met a priest who helped change his whole outlook. So maybe that's what they wanted to do. I wish that they'd explored that a bit more. Because they didn't, it leaves us kind of like, wait, where'd this come from? You're a pirate, right? Like, why do you care about protecting the innocent? Why are you so upset about massacres and pillaging? Pirates did that. I mean, let's go even a step further. Not just pirate, you served under Bo Yin. And in the lore, Bo Yin not only is friends with Astria, but joined Horikos right away. Do you not know? How long have you been with Bo Yin? Do you not know about that relationship? You say you're not a fan of Horikos, but didn't you work with them? A lot of that doesn't make sense. I feel like they needed to flesh out a bit more who Yin Chen is and why she wants to protect the people of Heathmoor, why she cares about the lives of Ashfeldians, why she cares about keeping these small villages and towns safe, what makes protecting Heathmoor different than any other time that she raided or pillaged alongside her pirate allies. What changed about her? I don't mind if there's a change. That's not the problem. She can totally have a change. In fact, I would like that. I'd love to have it where she's suddenly... What if, this is a thought, going back to that cathedral thing, where she says that this holy ground has been tainted by blood. What if she found faith? You know, like, again, I said that I'm not saying she's Christian, but what if she did become Christian? What if she pulled a Bao Shin on us? What if she met a priest who helped her change her outlook and she came to God, and that's why she views the cathedral as holy ground? And that may change her whole outlook on civilians. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily what has to happen. I'm saying that would make more sense as to why her outlook changed. That would make more sense as to why she does what she does and why she chooses to do what she does. And also, that begs another question. You call the cathedral holy ground. Okay, interesting. Interesting point. Why is it holy ground? What do the people of Ashfeld worship at this cathedral that would make it holy? See, I find this so funny because the For Honor developers always try to dodge the discussion of Christianity in the game. And yet, every time they try to dodge it, I only draw it right back in because of things they say. This cathedral, this place of holy ground, why is it holy? What do they worship there? No, they worship the Greek gods. Not possible. Cathedrals weren't a thing at the time that the Greek gods were worshipped. Try again. I'm not kidding. Like, this is something that we need to consider. So, and the Gothic architecture, the gargoyles and the like, that's very Gothic architecture. Very much the time of Christian idealism. Like, come on. Like, regardless, I'll leave that alone. I won't talk about that anymore. I know y'all get sick of it. So let's move away from Bo Yin and talk about the Inquisition. This is another problem we have. The Inquisition's actions make no sense. Not historically and not practically. Historically, this isn't how the Inquisitions behaved or conducted themselves. Even the Spanish Inquisition, as bad as it got, didn't destroy whole villages. That wasn't the way they did this. This is like the way a modern propagandist would interpret the Inquisitions. Massacring entire towns is foolish. It's counterintuitive to what the goal of an Inquisition is to do. And I'll do a whole video on this. I'm working on a video where I talk about the history of the Inquisitions. But the goal of an Inquisition is to inquire. The idea is, if there's a heresy going on, the Inquisitor's job is to investigate, find out if the person or persons involved are guilty of a heresy, and then, well, historically, the job of the Inquisition was to deem whether or not they were heretics and then hand them over to the secular courts, where the secular courts would deal with them. But let's say that, but in this version, in this world, the Inquisitors are the judge, jury, and executioner. So let's go with that. Then their job is to determine the heresy and then punish accordingly. But if you destroy not only the heretics, but also the villagers who are innocent, you are not deeming what is heretical, you're just brutes, you're massacring. And that doesn't help anyone. It does not bring people to Horikos, nor does it encourage people to be pious, but rather it makes them resent and hate what you stand for. If Horikos' goal is to just rally the people to Horikos' side and destroy the fanatics because they may turn people away, well, this is not how you do it. It's only going to make people hate you more, which I think may be the point. If I was a betting boy, I'm willing to bet that what they're going to do is, because of the way the Inquisition behaved, it's going to rally up another resistance to Horikos. That's my bet. They're going to come up with, because Chimera apparently is no longer a thing, or maybe they are a thing, they just are weak now. This whole Inquisition thing, the way they've acted, it's only going to rile up another resistance. That is what I think they're going for. I think that's what the developers are going for. But right now, the problem we have is this doesn't help Horikos. If anything, it only makes people hate Horikos more. because the Inquisition is not doing what an Inquisition should do. If Astria wants to rally support for Horkos, or wants to increase Horkos' strength, then this Inquisition is going too far. Now, some people have pointed out that, well, you know, maybe Astria doesn't have any role in this, and yet the lore clearly states, as we learn later, that Astria is going to make an example out of Inquisitor Yinchen. And that's where we go into my other big problem. I made a prediction a long time ago. People kept saying, what do you think would happen if Horkos or Chimera won the war? I predicted that if Horkos won the war, they would not follow in Apollyon's footsteps. They would become a tyrannical dictatorship that polices the world. Instead of creating new war, they would just rule as an authoritarian dictatorship. And this proves it right here. They literally have an Inquisition that goes around telling people what they can and can't believe, and defining what is heresy and what isn't, and punishing those who they deem could be even associated with heresy. And that implies that Horkos is now establishing its own state religion, its own state laws, its own codes of conduct, and they now have a police force in the Inquisition that basically polices it. So, yeah, it's essentially not Germany or Stalinist Russia or any of those that you want to connect it to. This is not encouraging war or conflict. Because think about it, if Astria wanted to follow in Apollion's footsteps, I feel like what she'd do is only give power to the fanatics. Make them another enemy. Make them a stronger force that they would have to fight. The only way around this that I could see, is if her goal is to bolster a resistance that's stronger than Chimera to create a new war. That would be the only way I could see this working in her favor, and I hope that's what they're doing. I hope that's the reason she wants to make an example out of Yin Chen, to bolster sentiment and turn her into a martyr so that people will rally to their side. That is what I hope is going to happen. But according to the lore, apparently the Inquisition formed because Ravier saw this fanatic group coming thanks to the Celestial Sphere, and so Astria immediately formed the Inquisition to prepare for this. And if that's the case, good on you, but I want to know your intentions. Did you do this because you want to create a resistance movement by your overly protective and overly zealous Inquisition? Or did you do this because you want to consolidate power? If you're doing this to consolidate power, you're doing a very poor job. That's what I have to say about that. But even still, again, my biggest problem with this, despite all I say, is that the Inquisition itself doesn't behave in a practical manner. And then there's something else. I didn't mention this because I only learned about it recently. My buddy Mal on Discord sent me a piece of new lore, a Daily Order lore, that points out that the Fanatics tried to sneak into Arabia to steal the Celestial Sphere, but they never even made it past the Kingdom Gates because the Aphiro were ready for them. And so I think I can say firmly that whether or not I like Yin Chen is irrelevant now. The Aphira now have the worst lore in For Honor. I am so sick of their Mary Sue bullcrap. It is so overdone now. The Aphira are just perfect in every respect, aren't they? Yeah. I'll do a whole video on that. That's not why we're here. So, final thoughts. What are my final thoughts on the Yin Chen story? I know I've been rambling on for a while right now, and this isn't scripted. I'm just going kind of off the cuff, off of some bullet points. So, let's wrap this up. What do I think? Well, for the pros, Yin Chen's design is awesome. And her concept, I would say, is excellent. I have no problems with this Inquisitor kind of character. I have no problem with her look and her design, and I don't even mind her altruistic nature. I don't mind that she wants to help people. What they need, though, is to explain her righteousness, explain where that comes from. If she was a former pirate who served under Bo Yin, I want to know what made her change from a vicious, ruthless, rogue pirate and turn into this person who wants to help a little girl dust off her dolly and hand it back to her and pat her on the head and say, run home now. What changed? What sparked that change in her? If Ubisoft will explain that, we're good. I'm okay with it. Because a couple people were telling me that they don't like Yin Chen because she feels like a Mary Sue. She feels a little too perfect. I don't know. She doesn't strike the chord of Mary Sue with me yet. She doesn't strike that chord because, well, for one thing, I think the only reason people are calling her a Mary Sue is because they don't understand where her righteous attitude comes from. And I understand that, I agree, but that's not symptomatic of a Mary Sue. That's symptomatic of a character without cause. Like, it's kind of like saying, why does Luke Skywalker want to destroy the Death Star? Why does Luke Skywalker want to save Princess Leia? Where does that righteousness come from? Well, we establish with his character that Luke believes in what's right and wrong. He wants to fight the Empire. He hates them. He makes that clear. He thinks that they're bad people. He wants to save Princess Leia because he's a young hormonal boy who saw a hot lady and said, oh my gosh, you know, like he drew his lightsaber, you know what I'm saying? We have reasons for why he does what he does. With Yin Chen, we don't know. Why does she do what she does? Why does she join the Inquisition? Because she wants to help people. Why? Why does she want to help people? She was a pirate. I think if they better explain why she takes this righteous route, we'll be fine. I think that criticism will go away. But the big criticism I have is the Inquisition itself is a very strange organization. From what we've seen, it seems counter to what a real Inquisition was like. And even if we go with a more fantasy-style Inquisition, it's not practical for what's going on. If the Inquisition was formed by Horcos as a means to protect the people from the fanatics, then they're doing a poor job by killing innocent civilians. If the goal was to preach the good word of Horcos, whatever that means, then they're doing a poor job because they're not preaching anything. And if the goal was to create a resistance movement by overly oppressing the people so that they rise up and revolt, well, it's going to be hard to get a resistance movement when you kill all the people who could be part of that resistance. Think about it. Think about it like this. If I want an entire village to rise up and revolt against me, I don't get that revolt by killing everyone in the village. You know what I mean? I would need to hold back a little. That's how that works. But anyway, the Inquisition makes no sense. That's the part that I don't like. The Inquisition and its goals make very little sense to me. Yin Chen herself will be fine with me as long as they explain where her righteousness comes from. But her design is awesome. The feel of the season is pretty cool. I like that they're actually expanding on the world of Heathmore and showing the civilians and showing the people and showing what they're going through. Kind of like a Caiaphas Cain novel where we actually see the little guys some too. I really like that. And I also like the fact that, you know, they're exploring different aspects of Heathmore like spiritualism and spirituality and stuff like that. I know they're never going to go the Christian route, but I don't mind kind of drawing some connections there. You know what I mean? I think that's really cool. But anyway, that's all I really have to say about this. All in all, not bad. I don't hate it. It's not the worst I've seen. I think it could be better. I think it's a little undercooked right now. I feel like Maiko is still probably the objective best in terms of story. But this one is pretty close. I think it just needs some tweaking here and there. But other than that, I think that about wraps it up. So what do you guys think? Do you like Yin Chen's lore? Do you like her design? What do you enjoy about this overall, or do you just think it's crap? Let me know respectfully down in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.